In the last couple of weeks, we've tried to go around the Big 12 and kind of get the finger on the pulse of each school. And one of the ones that's interesting because they've been, engulfed in rumors about where they could wind up is Kansas and possibly in the Big 10. Matt Tate, Lawrence Journal World and KUSports.com joins us now. Matt, this Big 10 talk, is there teeth to it, or is that more wild speculation right now on the part of people that just see a more natural geographical fit for the Jayhawks if this league were to break up?
Yeah, can you hear me okay, first of all?
Gotcha, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there's nothing to that yet. I mean, it's not impossible to see that happening someday. It's not impossible to see why KU would fit well. It's not impossible to see why KU would want to be in the Big Ten if this thing goes crazy. But yeah, man, I've been doing KU for 20 years and I continue to talk to KU sources, Big 12 sources, NCAA sources, and every one of them's telling me, no, nothing yet, nothing there. So I think, those rumors, they start on message boards, they catch fire and take on a life of their own on Twitter, like most things do. And I think the reason that this particular one got so much juice was very simple. I mean, Kansas fans right now are desperate to find someone that will tell them that KU's going to the Big 12. So I'm sorry, the Big 10. So that's what they want to hear. That's what they want the outcome to be as a fan base. And so if you get to the point where you found someone who's going to, push that narrative and tell you it's happening or tease it a little bit or make it sexy, then, then of course you're going to share that and you're going to get excited about it and you're going to respond to it and all that stuff. So, seen it a bunch of times. Obviously this is the highest of the high stakes stuff. And so I understand why it caught some life, but yeah, man, everybody that I continue to talk to says nothing there. And to me, you got to take everything you hear with a grain of salt. Of course, you got to assume some people might be not telling you the truth, not fully giving you everything they know in this business, right? But the thing I keep coming back to is it took Texas and Oklahoma 6 months of secret negotiations to get to the SEC. There's no way KU pulled off the Big 10 in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I mean, it's just not realistic. So deep breaths, calm down, patience. Let's see where this thing goes. And I think everybody's kind of on that page right now until the next rumor gets started.
Jayhawk for Life 22 on Twitter live then. He said it was guaranteed that the Big Ten in Kansas was happening. Now, in all seriousness, what was your reaction when you saw the bombshell report from Brett Zorneman? Obviously, everybody in Big 12 country has been kind of running around like chickens with their heads cut off, scrambling. But what was your initial reaction to that news?
Yeah, it seemed crazy. I mean, right? I didn't not believe it because I've known him for a long time, back when A&M was still in the Big 12, and he's a terrific reporter. So, I know he's not one of those guys that's just throwing stuff at the wall. So I very much believed it. It just seemed surreal. And to be honest with you, I was on a little weekend getaway with some high school buddies of mine out in Breckenridge, Colorado. We're driving up the mountain for a fun weekend, trying to get away from everything. And here this drops. And so that was kind of a big thing, obviously. And then on the same drive up was when Bill Self and KU announced that he got COVID. So that was a tough car ride for me because there's not the best service up there. I had my computer with me, but it was much, much harder than it would be just sitting here at my desk or whatever. So, yeah, but immediately you start thinking, well, maybe that's jumping the gun. Maybe that's not true, even though I think the report was probably dead on and great reporting, obviously. You still have to think, man, maybe not. I don't know. That seems crazy. And then, boy, it didn't take any time to get from 0 to 100, and all of a sudden by Tuesday, it's a done deal. And now we're in this game where realignment has sparked again. And we get to see and cover and wait out this staring contest that's going to happen between the Big 12 and those two schools for the rest of the contract, which is going to be fascinating to watch and to cover. And it's very clear what each is kind of feeling about the situation right now. I'm sure OU and Texas would love to get out of here right now. And that's obviously not going to happen. But the Big 12 has to try to hold them as long as they can for all that money that they bring in. So it's going to be, as you guys know, I mean, it's going to be crazy. But I do think it's going to happen over a very long period of time. And, you know, as much as I sometimes don't like these types of things that just never go away and you kind of have to track every day, all day for seemingly an endless amount of time, it is kind of cool because if it's ever a slow day and I just want to throw something up, I'll just dive into an angle of realignment and people will eat it up. And I won't make stuff up. I'm not saying that, but just, you know, take another look at something and kind of see, look at it from this vantage point or that vantage point, and people will read it and jump all over it. So there's good and bad with this playing out over the long term.
Matt, that's what we've been doing for the last 2.5 weeks here. I mean, it just how it's been. Does Kansas feel confident going forward? Like, should the Big 12 breakup, which I think right now the more likely thing is the 8 stay together and go somewhere or make some kind of merger or whatever, more than they, you know, shatter and dissipate across. Do they feel confident in their future somewhere else, given that they've had, I mean, it's been a rough year, especially for the football program off the field, not just on.
Right. Yeah, you know, I think that's what Kansas is confident, you know, and I think that they're confident even in football, which is kind of crazy, but especially right now, I think they feel like Lance Leipold is a great hire, and there's a lot of support behind that, and he's obviously has a great track record. So even from a football standpoint, there's a vibe around here, I guess, that kind of says, you know, man, this is probably better than if Les Miles were the coach, or if David Beatty were still here, or if Charlie Weiss were still here. You know, we actually have a guy that I'm sure you guys saw the list, but I think it was Pro Football Focus put out a list of the best college football coaches in the country right now, and Leipold ranked 9th on their list. I mean, that's the guy at Kansas. So yeah, they're confident, and then that's to say nothing of the confidence that this university and athletic department and fan base has from obviously their historic and storied basketball program, which of course is led by Bill Self, and a Hall of Famer, and the kind of guy that can make you feel good about anything, even in the most dire situation. If he told you it was going to be okay, you'd probably believe him, and at least from the fan base perspective. So, you know, I think they believe that whatever their options end up being, if they do have to go out and find a new place, that'll work out in their favor. And I also think that, you know, the idea of doing what you're doing, or what you just said, of the 8 sticking together and moving forward with some outside the box thinking and some creativity, and just trying to, you know, see what can become of a new and revamped Big 12. I think there's some early confidence that wouldn't be the total doomsday scenario that a lot of people are painting it as. Now, financially, you know, the numbers are numbers, dollars are dollars, and it's just impossible to not look at something that pays you a lot less money as something that's not as good as what you had. So even if they find a way to merge with somebody or bring in, you know, a handful of new programs or whatever, it's just impossible to see this group of 8 recovering what they're losing in Oklahoma and Texas walking out the door. So, you know, they're going to stand to lose some money if they stick together. For me, and I think for a lot of people, it's just a matter of how much. I mean, you know, payouts averaging over the last couple of good years around $35 million for the Big 10 or the Big 12 schools. They're not going to get to that, but could they get to 25? I mean, if they could, they'd probably do backflips and feel okay about that, because there's been some numbers and some talk about, as you guys have heard, you know, you end up in a non-Power 5 or the Mountain West or something like that, and those numbers are way down, 7 to 12 or something like that, you know. So that's a dramatic outcome, and so I think that helps make that 25 number, or even 20, seem a little more tolerable. But yeah, so long to go, such a long road ahead before any of that is known, or even we know the options. But I am excited. I want to cover this thing and have some fun with it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how creative and how outside the box the Big 12, these 8 schools, can get. I mean, I think at this point you got nothing to lose. So, you know, the wildest scenario you can come up with, throw it out there and see if somebody will support it or see if it can work. And if it can, maybe you hit this unexpected jackpot and things really go crazy from there. So I don't know. I don't have the slightest idea how it's going to go, nor does really anybody, but it's going to be a fun ride for sure.
No, it's fascinating, Matt. It really is. Even though there's some nerves, obviously, for a lot of fan bases, it is fascinating stuff. And to know that we're not anywhere close to the end. I mean, this thing's going to drag out for a while, not just Big 12 related, but it looks like across the country. In certain states, politics come into play. We saw Oklahoma State and their reaction to Oklahoma going to the SEC. And we saw K-State make a statement earlier this week. We saw the Texas legislature just have a dog and pony show. Is there any type of connection there with Kansas and Kansas State where it's, kind of that package deal or anything along those lines, or is that all completely separate? And if separate, do you think the pulse of the K-State fan? Because Kansas and that basketball program, I mean, I think people know why they'd be appealing, but Kansas State seems like they're probably amongst the most nervous right now, I think.
No question. Yeah, one of my best friends and his dad, his dad's a big donor at K-State, and my buddy's a diehard Wildcat fan and the whole bit. And, they're very nervous. And I think they represent that fan base very well because you don't know what's going to happen, and you do start to worry. And as much as the football brand over there is solid and looks to be on solid ground, I mean, this isn't Bill Snyder taking teams to the brink of a national championship game like they had a handful of years ago. So I think they are nervous. To answer your first question, though. The Board of Regents in the state is kind of obviously the group that oversees all the public universities. And they have a policy that went into place in March. I believe it was fully adopted in March that basically says that any school in the state of Kansas that they oversee that wants to even engage in any kind of negotiations or have talks or anything about moving to a different conference is required to have the permission, basically, of the Board of Regents before they begin any kind of talks. So there's some speculation out there that was put in place to protect K-State from KU going rogue and just running off and doing their own thing. Now, again, that they have to request permission doesn't mean they'll get permission. And that's where it could get ugly. And you could, really get the political part of this in the great state of Kansas, So you start looking at the president or the chairman of the Board of Regents, where did he graduate from school? Well, guess what? He's a K-State graduate and, all these things. So you start looking at that stuff and I don't think there's anything that is unbreakable that would be tying them together. I don't think it has to be a package deal, but there's certainly some people within the state and politically, but also on the Board of Regents probably that are feeling like that's in the best interest of Kansas. And so I think there would be some strong movement toward doing whatever they can to make sure that is a possibility or maybe even how it goes. So, are there ways around those types of things? I think the answer is always yes. But I think that new policy, like I said, it came up a couple of years ago. So this isn't anything that they ramrodded through that was really reacting to what's going on right now. It was first proposed or brought to the board, like I said, in maybe even 2018. So there was probably a little foresight then thinking about, well, realignment's going to come up someday and maybe we should get ahead of this thing. But I don't think it was a policy that was fully adopted until just this past March. So it is there now. And like I said a minute ago, that gives us one of those things that we could check on every day. We can send a note to the Board of Regents Director of Communications and say, hey, has KU or K-State requested to negotiate with a new conference? And, they say no. And we could do that every day. And I don't want to, but at the same time, I kind of do. So we'll see where it goes for sure.
When that yes comes in, that'll be all, worth all the requests over time.
Right,
but, man, it's just so fascinating. I mean, this season – When Texas goes to opposing stadiums or Oklahoma goes to opposing stadiums, whenever they lose a game, it's just going to be madness. It's going to be incredible to cover for sure.
Oh my gosh! Think about all the bad calls that are going to go against those schools. I mean, I don't have a dog in the fight, but I like covering good stories, and I'm excited to watch that because do you guys remember the old Mark Mangino KU football BCS rant? Have you seen that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's coming. That's coming. I don't know if it'll be Lincoln Riley or Sark down at Texas or what, but I feel like one of those guys maybe sometime in November is going to be tired of calls going against them, and they're going to have lost a game or got jobbed, so to speak, on a bad call, and I think their post game will be, instead of BCS, it'll be Big 12. That's what happened. Big 12, and I'm all for it. Let's hear it. Let's see what that is, because that Mangino one around here especially still has tons of life and legs, and I mean it's one of the greatest all-time rants, I think, in Big 12 history, if not college history. So it's I think we've got another one coming. I don't know who it'll be, but I think it's coming.
Matt Tate, Lawrence Journal World, KUSports.com. Love talking to Matt every time we get to, and we'll talk a lot during basketball season because that KU team is loaded again. And believe me, I hear it from my KU grad girlfriend all the time, how good the team's going to be. All right, Matt, thanks a lot. Thanks for hopping on with us. Always love talking to you.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you. Take care of yourselves.
You too.
Yeah, Matt Tate. Love talking to Matt. One of the good guys in our business. One of the great guys to talk to. And yeah, I can't wait for that. And Nebraska went through. You remember the Nebraska A&M game that was like 9-6 or whatever it was? Mm-hmm. I know the weather wasn't great or whatever, but every call that went against Nebraska, against A&M in that game, it could have and it wasn't like blatantly bad stuff, but it was everything that could go either way went one way.
Yep.
That's how it went. And then when A&M left the next year, they experienced that a couple times. We're like, everything that can go either way, it's not going to go that way.
Yeah, I don't know how involved the officiating and all that will be, although it just hadn't even crossed my mind until they brought that up. That'll be another very interesting aspect of this. But, man, just the tension and the anticipation and the build-up for whenever they hit a town for perhaps the final time is going to be something else. And, just in the reaction, depending on how successful or not successful either one of them are. I mean, I think we all expect Oklahoma to be quite successful this year, and I think Texas will be pretty good. But, for every loss, there's going to be a lot of cheering around the Big 12. If you're a Big 12 fan, I can speak for Big 12 fans. We've never been like the SEC where it's like we hate each other all year round until one of them's playing for a title and then we chant the conference name. Like, that's never been the Big 12. But there is that, wonder in me as far as the conference already sort of hates each other, but this year, especially if Oklahoma and Texas are like in a playoff position, the biggest critics will be the Big 12 fans themselves. Like, they won't want the Big 12 to win a title if it's going to come from either one of those two teams. You know what I mean? It's like, we'd rather not have all that extra money if it's going to come via you two. Then again, we're talking about money, so they probably would be cheering. But
yeah, maybe they do, but and again, this could be more money on the way out the door. But
more buyout money.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how it changes throughout the year and how the ebbs and flows of that. And I think Steve Sarkisian and Lincoln Riley both have the demeanor to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Think about if Texas is going to the SEC and Tom Herman had to deal with this. He'd have a stroke, a poor bastard. He would. It just.
That he's a little too high strung.
Yeah.
He's a little too high strung, and that would not have worked out well for him, I think, based on what we'd seen the last 3 years or so. But yeah, I think Steve Sarkisian's got a real steady hand, obviously. He's been through a lot, and I think that's shaped him into a pretty good person who's got a good grip on things. And I know he had a good rant that people were passing around yesterday about student athletes and what all's on their shoulders. And, I've actually spoken about it just in different terms, but he went on this whole thing about, how back in the day after a bad game, guy has a bad game and, maybe a couple people outside the stadium or something jeer at him or say something, but outside of that, you don't hear it. You don't hear anything about it. And now, the moment you have a bad game, you go to Twitter and there's people actually talking directly to you, telling you how bad you suck or how you cost them the game. And so he was really speaking on the mental health aspect. And how Texas is dealing with that. And that's why I love that Aranda and them have been doing that now for a while. But, I think Sarkisian's a good hand, and he'll be good there. He'll be solid there. I think Riley's a smart dude too, but he's shown a little bit, here and there that he'll get a little pissed off and little tempery. So, if there's something controversial that happens, wouldn't be surprised to see either one of them pop off, but let's see it happen first.
All right, open up